Hello everyone. I welcome you all to the basic video for building vocabulary. There are two methods that we're going to learn primarily under this topic, which is the root method for building vocabulary, and the second one is the grouping method for building vocabulary. Before we move further, let's talk about the importance of this topic and how does it come into perspective with respect to the SAT. So, a question that I often get is, ma'am, does SAT directly test you on vocabulary? The answer is no. Then why do we need to build vocabulary? Is it important for you to understand the RCs? The answer is again, no. Then where does it come into perspective? Okay, let's talk about the importance of this topic and why is it necessary for us to build a good vocabulary to be able to excel in the SAT exam. The SAT exam has the first 14 to 15 questions from the reading section and the next 12 to 13 questions from the writing section. Out of these 14 to 15 questions, the first 4 to 5 questions are from a topic called vocabulary in context. This is just for one module, whereas for the second module, you have roughly about 4 to 7 questions, depending upon do you get an easy second module or a difficult second module, again from the same topic, vocabulary in context, which means this roughly transfers to 10 to 11 questions out of 54 questions. Doesn't that mean that it occupies at least 1/5 importance with respect to the number of questions on the SAT? Please mind here, I did not say 1/5 of importance with respect to the scoring, but only with respect to the number of questions. Why not scoring? Why only number of questions? That is a topic for discussion another time. As of now, this establishes that we need to have a good vocabulary, and mind it, not vocabulary as in the rote learning of the meaning of the words, but rather how to use vocabulary in context. SAT will never ask you what does this word mean. It will never ask you the synonyms for anything or antonyms for anything. But it would provide you a context. As I said, vocabulary in context. So here C is for the context that the passage is presenting. It would expect you to come up with a suitable word to be filled up into the blank based on the clues provided in the context, or it would expect you to give the meaning of the word that would literally fit according to the contextual clues. So yes, vocabulary is tested, but not directly. You do not have to give the meanings of the words. Rather, you have to focus on the practical usage. To be very honest, the entire SAT exam is pretty much centered around the practical usage of skills, and it is not just about a rote learning thing. Having understood the importance of this topic, let's move further and talk about as to why did I say it is not important for RCs. Can you not find some difficult words in RCs? So wouldn't vocabulary be needed there as well? Well, a basic vocabulary is needed, but it is presumed that the vocabulary or the words that are used in RCs, you do possess that kind of a basic vocabulary strength. Also, even if you are not able to find the meaning of any specific word, it is presumed that based on the exercise of words in context or vocabulary in context, you achieve sufficient skills to be able to guess the meaning of the XYZ word that is stucking you up in the passage or in the options, which means the absolute meaning would rarely restrict you from getting at the right answer when it is presented in the reading comprehension. You should be able to get the meaning in which ways out of the rest of the context. So the requirement for building vocabulary is primarily for the words in context questions, the vocabulary in context type of questions, where it is required that you judge the given words and you also understand the nuances between them. Other good thing about SAT is that it would not test you on the subtle differences or the subtle nuances of the words. It would test you on the broad meanings and the broad usage of the word, and that definitely helps you in understanding words at a larger level. And also it brings into perspective how the root method and grouping method are one of the easiest ways to build your vocabulary. Let's move ahead and understand what are the root methods and the grouping method. And while listening, I'll also give you a couple of assignments to follow so that eventually when you come across the curriculum of the entire SAT, you can keep enhancing your vocabulary instead of relying on a specific resource or instead of relying on a one-day session. Let's get started. Beginning with what is the root method? So the root method is something that divides the basic parts of words into three things: root, prefix, and suffix. As the name itself suggests, prefix is something which is joined before the word, whereas suffixes are something which are joined after the word. What words are we talking of? No, not the complete words, but rather the roots, which means the construct is something like prefix plus roots plus suffixes. And all of this makes your complete word. Here, please note, not every word will have a prefix, not every word will have a suffix. In fact, not every word can be further broken down. Some of the words are the roots itself. But if they had these parts, then this is how you position them. Many English words come from Latin or Greek roots, which often hold clues to their meanings, and understanding those clues is our key to learning new words. And more importantly, guessing the meaning of the new words that we might not have come across before. So how does the root method help? The root method helps because by learning some common roots, we'd be in a position to guess the meanings of unfamiliar words based on the structure. No matter how many words you retain, there is a fair chance that you might still be surprised by a couple of words on the SAT. It could be either in the question, it could be as a part of the options, but it is rarely likely that you know absolutely the meaning to each and every word. So eventually, we need to understand how to make an educated guess. How to use the root method? The root method has application in the following manner. You begin by identifying the common roots. For example, bene. Bene, which means good. So if you see the word like beneficial or benevolent, you know that it has to have a positive tone because you're talking about the root good. On the other hand, you have the root mal, which means bad. So the moment you see the word malfunction or malice, even if you do not know the exact meaning, you can predict that the tone for these words is going to be something negative because the root itself is negative. Another example could be the word port, which means to carry something, as in transport or import. Again, the moment you see the words, you know that something is going to be carried across somewhere. Of course, the different meanings would vary. For example, in transport, it can be broken down into trans plus port. Port means to carry, trans means to. So transport simply means something which is carried between two locations. On the other hand, port means carry and M means inside. So import is the carrying in of anything. You could import information, you could import a file from one folder to another folder, or you have the word simple import, which means bringing some goods from out of the country into the country. So import is bringing something in. To make sure that you have a good grasp on the root method, practice by breaking down words into parts. A common example could be anthropology. Now, if you want to understand what it means, let's understand the different parts of it. One part is anthropo, which means human. Another part is ology, which, as we all know, means study of something. So anthropology can be put together to mean the study of humans. Just by understanding this thing, wouldn't it help you to very easily guess the meaning of anthropomorphize? You again have the same root word anthro. So even if you do not know what the rest of the part means, you can easily guess that it is going to be something related to humans, and so on and so forth. Let's move ahead and discuss a few commonly used root words and a few examples based on the vocabulary commonly used by SAT. Please understand that these word lists are not exhaustive. This is just indicative for a practice purpose and to teach you how to break the words into different roots and how could they assist you in learning new words. Let's begin with the word port, which as we previously discussed means to carry. So what would portable be? Portable as in port plus able. So anything which has the ability to be carried or easy to carry. Laptop, a portable computer. Mobile phone, a portable telephone, isn't it? Transport, trans means to, port means carry. So transport could mean when you're carrying something between two places or more. Import or export. M means inside, X means outside. So import would mean to bring in from some other place. The next root is bene, which means good or well. We have the word benevolent. Now again, The root meaning itself suggested that the meaning is going to be something positive. Volent means wishing. So benevolent would ultimately sum up to be someone who's showing kindness and goodwill. Beneficial, again with a positive undertone, means something which is producing good effects and is helpful. Benefit would mean an advantage or profit gained from something. Next root is mal, which means something bad or evil. For example, malicious. Malicious means intending to harm or something which is done as a spite. For example, the person has malicious intentions, or my computer now has malicious content. Malfunction, something bad. So malfunction would mean something which is failing to function. You can see that the root words are mal plus function, bad plus to work. Malfunction is a commonly used word for any kind of machinery. Malevolent. If you remember from the previous slide, volent means wishing, mal means bad. So a person who is wishing harm on others would be a malevolent person. Mal plus content, again, bad content. Someone who is dissatisfied or a rebellious person. Maladroit. Adroit means skillful or a skilled person. Maladroit, mal means bad, so a person who is badly skilled, which translates to someone who is unskilled. Let's talk about the root ten, which means to hold or keep. Word tenacious. I already know that the root word means to hold or keep. So tenacious means someone who is holding fast or persistent. Then we have detention. And again means to hold or keep. Detention means the act of holding back or confining someone in a place. Lastly, tenant. So basically a person who holds a lease on property. All of these words are using the root word ten, which means hold. Moving on, we have the word bio, which means life. Biology, the very subject which we used to study, means the study of life. Ology, as we've already looked into before, means study of something. Biosphere, again, a sphere that is of life. The biosphere here talks about the part of Earth where life exists. Biodegradable, something which can decompose in a lifeful manner or naturally. Chron, which means time, a very commonly used word, chronological, which means something arranged in time order. Chronic, for example, a chronic disease. So chronic is something which is persisting for a very long time. Synchronize, for example, synchronization of the cycles. It means to occur at the same time. Sync means together, chron means time. So from there you can derive to occur at the same time. Next root in context is anthro, which means human. Let's talk about the first word here, philanthropy. Philanthropy means the love of humanity, especially through donations. Phil means love, anthro means human, and from there we get love of humanity. Next word, anthropology. Again, anthro means human, ology means study. So the study of humans or how they evolved is anthropology. Misanthrope. Mis is a negative word. Anthro means human, so a person who dislikes humans. The next word here, dict, which means to say something or declare something. For example, dictate or dictation, when you speak aloud for someone and the other person writes down. Predict, pre means before, dict means say, so predict would mean something which is said in advance. Contradict, contra means against, dict means to say. Thus, contradict means to speak against or opposite to something. By the way, dictaphone is also associated with the same root, as in a phone to which you can dictate, dictaphone. Odd, which means to hear. You have the word audible, means something which has the ability to be heard. Audience, so people who hear are called the audience. Auditory, something which is related to the sense of hearing, for example, the auditory nerve. The next word we have is the root script or script, which means to write. Transcribe, which means to write down spoken words. Trans means across and scribe means to write. So when you're writing down something which has already been said, is transcribe. Describe, which means to write or speak about something. Manuscript. Manu means hand, script means to write. So manuscript means something which is written by hand. Next, we have cred, which means to believe or trust. Credible, something which is believable or worth of trust. Incredible, in, which says that it is something opposite to what otherwise you would assume it to be. So incredible, credible means something believable, incredible becomes something which is hard to be believed. Credentials. Credentials are something that prove a person's identity or qualifications, which means they are helping you believe a person. Next, we have vis or wit, which means to see. Visible means something which is able to be seen. Visualize, something which means that you're forming a mental image. And visionary is a person with a foresight. Let us now continue with the next method for building vocabulary, the word grouping method. The word grouping method asks you to organize the words by themes or categories. This way, what happens is that you do not have to memorize the words individually, and rather you can understand them in a specific connotation. That specific connotation could be either synonyms or the kind of behavior maybe that you're trying to talk of, maybe a specific system that you're trying to elaborate on. Maybe the theme could be nature and the various aspects of nature, so on and so forth. Which means that the moment you see the word, you will not have to think it as an entirely random word, but you could think of it in context to some larger context, which would ultimately help you in recollecting the precise meaning of that word. How to use this specific method is that you group the words by common themes: emotion, power, movement, negativity, whatever it could be. Or if you want to talk of a specific example, the different emotions that we talk of. It could be happy, sad, angry. It could be enthusiastic. It could be inquisitive. So whatever the words you're talking about, which are related to emotions, you can simply categorize them under the category of or the theme of emotion. The other way could be that you can simply find synonyms and antonyms to the entire situation, to the words that you're talking of, as in hostile pairs with amiable as opposite words. Hostile means an unfriendly person, whereas amiable means a friendly or a pleasant personality person. Similarly, you can also organize using the synonyms. Let's further talk of different words that we can use in the same manner to understand the themes and what are the different words you can learn under specific themes. The first one is emotions. We have two words related and ecstatic. Let's try to guess the meaning. Both of these words mean when a person is very, very happy. So this is a positive kind of emotion that you're talking of. Other two words in the same context would be melancholy and mournful, both of which are talking of a negative emotion, as in sadness or despair or regretting the loss of something. You also have the theme power or influence. Word assertive would mean a person who's trying to establish boundaries, a person who very rigidly puts in what he or she wants. Basically, a confidently self-assured person. Other synonyms to the same could be an authoritative person who's commanding and self-confident. Dominant would not be an exact synonym, but a little bit of extrapolation of being assertive. Dominant would be when you are not only building your power, but also you are telling what to do to others. So basically, you have power and influence over other people. The opposite to it would be submissive, means a person who's ready to conform to the authority or will of others. Movement and change. Let's talk about the first group, immutable versus progressive. Now, immutable and progressive are the opposites to each other. Immutable is the same as conventional, a person who is not ready to change, whereas a progressive person would be the one who explores the new things and is open to the changes coming along the way. Transient is something which only lasts for a short period of time, which means this also keeps changing. Static would be the opposite of which, and it means lacking in movement or any kind of change. Intelligence and wisdom. Okay, so the sage itself tells that I'm going to talk about something pretty wise. Sagacious comes from the word sage itself. And a sagacious person is the one who has a keen mental discernment and a very good judgment about things. Erudite, similarly, is a person who has great knowledge and learning. So is an astute. Astute is more about skill. It is more about how a person has the ability to accurately assess the situations or present the skills in a specific paradigm. Perceptive is again the very same as sagacious, a person who has very sensitive insights. Nature and environment, verdant. Okay, looks like a green forest. Is it the same as a green forest? Very much so. Verdant is a place which is green with grass or has a lot of vegetation. Arid, as we can understand it, that it connects with something like red. Red means when you do not have something. So arid is a place which has little or no rain, or something which is a dry place, a desert. Flora and fauna, I'm sure you must be pretty aware of it. You must have come across these terms numerous times in your science classes and the social studies classes. Flora represents the plants of a particular region, and fauna represents the animals of that region. Relationships and social interactions. Hostile, a hostile takeover, a hostile conversation, a hostile workplace environment. All of these talk about an unfriendly or an antagonistic situation. Amiable, she has a very amiable disposition. Cordial, her personality was pretty cordial. We cordially welcome you. All of these mean friendly and a pleasant kind of person or a situation. Apathetic. Okay. Apathetic comes from the word apathy. Apathy is the opposite of empathy. Empathy means when you are able to put yourself in the shoes of other person and understand what the other person is going through. So apathy, the opposite would be when you're absolutely unconcerned or you cannot decipher what is the other person going through. Apathetic would be a person who shows no feeling or interest or any kind of concern. Morality and virtue. Okay. Altruistic. Altruistic is a person who shows selfless concern for other people. From very same root, the word altruism also stems out. Altruism is the act, whereas altruistic is the person. Corrupt would be pretty opposite of this. A person who is dishonest or morally depraved is a corrupt person. Then you have virtuous and integrity, both of which are positive words, which indicates people who have high moral standards and principles. Negativity and criticism, derogatory, disdainful, both of these words, you must have heard of them in derogatory remarks were made or the environment or the conversation was disdainful. Both of them mean a lack of respect for something or a disrespectful attitude. Scornful, expressing contempt or derision. Skeptical is not the same as negative, but yes, it is about criticism. A person who's not easily convinced about something and is critically evaluating everything, but still has doubts. That is a skeptical person. Health and condition. Ailing. The planet Earth is ailing, which means something which was in poor health. Robust. The argument the person made was absolutely robust. The COVID virus is pretty vigorous. Both of them mean strong and healthy. Fragile would be the opposite of robust and vigorous. It means something which can be easily broken or damaged. For example, the glass. Honesty and deception. Candid. Hey, please take a candid picture of me, which means something which is for which you're not specifically posing. Instead, it is very clear and honest. It is transparent. Candid and honest both mean something which is straightforward, something which has no deceptions involved. On the other hand, fraudulent and deceitful would be the opposite of it. Fraudulent means a person who is involved in deceiving someone. And similarly, deceitful also means a person who is guilty of involving in a deceit or misleading a person. Mixed feelings. Hey, I'm not sure which one to hear, which one to listen, the brain or the heart. This is a feeling which we call ambivalence, and the person is called ambivalent, someone who has mixed or contradictory feelings. Equivocal is a synonym to it, which also means the very same thing. Muddle. Muddle means to confuse or disorganize the situation. Hey, don't muddle in my affairs. Quandary, a state of uncertainty or perplexity, a little bit different from ambivalent and equivocal, just because ambivalent and equivocal specifically focus on two different options being available, and you're not able to choose between them. Quandary, on the other hand, could be even for something more than two options. It is just a state of uncertainty about something. Doesn't necessarily have to be between two things. Determined. Yes, I am going to get this done. Dogged. Dogged means someone who is stubbornly persistent. Immutable. We came across this word a couple of slides back also, where we understood it as the opposite of conventional. Immutable. We came across this word a couple of slides back as well, where we understood this as a synonym to conventional, which means a person who is not ready to move ahead in time. The person who sticks on to the previous values or previous principles. Immutable means a person or a situation that is unchanging over time. Resilient, you must have heard of this word very commonly. A person who is able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions is a resilient person. You can say if a person is not well and maybe if a person missed school for a lot of days and still comes back and gets a good grade, you can say that resilience is one of the quality of that person. Steadfast, a person who is standing firm and unwavering in the face of purpose. Becoming weak, debilitate, to make weak or feeble. Feeble itself means weak. So debilitate is a situation when something is becoming less strong. Enervate, to cause someone to feel drained of energy. Stop getting on my nerves. The situation of getting on somebody's nerves is enervate. Enfeeble comes from the word feeble itself, which has the same meaning as debilitate. Tenuous. My grasp on this concept is pretty tenuous, which means weak or not very substantial. Skillful. A person who can do multiple things at the same time, maybe, or whatever the person is doing, the person excels in doing that. The first word for which is consummate, a person who is highly skilled, complete, or perfect. Adept and adroit, both of them mean a skilled and a clever person at something. Dexterous. Now, please mind here before I give you the meaning of dexterous, a word commonly confused with dexterous is dextral. What is dextral? Dextral means a right-handed person. So you would think dexterous to be something of similar nature, but dexterous has a more precise meaning, which is skillful in the use of hands or body. So it's not just about a right-handed person, it's more about a person who's skilled in doing something. Ambidextrous is a person, on the other hand, who can use both the hands equally. Ambi means two, just like we had for ambivalent person or ambiguity. Similarly, ambidextrous means two. Ambi means two in ambidextrous, and dexterous means a person who's skilled. But when ambi and dexterous are coming together, the entire meaning is a person who is skilled in using both the hands. Worsen, something getting bad. Aggravate, aggravate the pain or situation. Exacerbate, to increase the severity of something. Inflame, you must have heard of the word inflammation, which is a common thing that happens for the body, which means to provoke or intensify something. Intensify again means to enhance in a strength or severity. Support. So what are these? Cushions? No, these are called bolsters. Bolster, buttress, advocate, endorse. All are synonyms for support, with a little bit of difference when you're talking of advocate or endorse something. In that case, you're approving or recommending those things as well. Buttress and bolster simply means to strengthen or support a given situation or a given statement. Emotionally troubled, don't know what to do. Consternation, a feeling of anxiety or dismay. Agitated, when you are pretty angry about something, when you are troubled or nervous about something. Disturbed, marked by emotional or mental disturbance. Now, disturbed could be not only in the form of an emotional feeling, it could also be in the form of a simple disturbance, as in I was working, whereas someone came and disturbed me. That is not necessarily emotional, but we know that disturbed can also be an emotional state. Distraught, I've been kept distraught by this topic, deeply upset and agitated. Aggressive. Antagonistic. Now, antagonist is the opposite of protagonist. Who is a protagonist? The hero of the story. Antagonist is the villain of the story. So antagonistic would be someone who's showing opposition or hostility. Belligerent, a person who's hostile and aggressive. Pugnacious, a person who keeps arguing very frequently. Truculent, aggressively defiant, a person who always keeps defending himself or herself, that too extremely aggressively, that too with a lot of energy. Narrow-minded, kuएं का मेंढक, the frog of the well. An insular person who is a pretty isolated person. Myopic, you might remember it from your 10th class science, where you must have learnt of it as a eyesight condition. How is it connected over here? A person who is short-sighted, basically lacking foresight. Parochial, again, a person who has a very narrow or limited outlook. Provincial comes from the word province, which is again a small region of a larger entity, maybe a country. Something which is concerning a province or region, and it doesn't necessarily have to be geographical. It could also be in terms of your mental faculties, something unsophisticated. Interesting. Alluring, something which is very fascinating, which pulls you towards itself. Compelling, this argument compelled me to go and join the meeting, something which is evoking interest or admiration in a very powerful way. Intriguing, okay, your question has intrigued my interest into what is the concept that you're developing further, something that is arousing the curiosity in someone. Stimulating, oh, this is very mentally stimulating, something that encourages interest or enthusiasm. A negative sign for something, an omen. Forebode. Now, forebode, the word fore means before. Forebode is a prediction or a warning of something bad before it happens. Foreshadow, again, when you are giving a hint to something which is going to happen in the future. Portend, when you are able to predict or warn of something that hasn't happened yet, but it is definitely not a good thing to happen. Harbinger. Harbinger is a person or a thing that announces what is going to happen, not necessarily negative, although. Harbinger could also be used in a neutral sense or in a negative sense. Both are the possibilities here. This completes the topic for building vocabulary. But the pertinent question here is, are these many words sufficient? Are these many roots sufficient? Are all these words more than enough for us to crack the words in context type of question on the SAT exam? As you understand already by now, my pattern to these questions is the answer no. Then where do we get the rest of the words? How do we make sure that we are able to crack as many questions as possible and we are not confused with the words on the actual exam? Let's talk of this tangent. How to build vocabulary? The two methods have been taught to you. Some words using their application have been given to you, but ultimately it is you who has to actively build the vocabulary. A very effective way could be, you can simply create an Excel sheet and you can name it Building Vocabulary. Under this Excel sheet, you can have two sheets. There could be one sheet which talks of words, another sheet that talks of roots, prefixes, and suffixes. The Excel sheet already has columns named from A to Z. All you need to do is that whenever you come across a new word, you can simply go and add that word in the respective column. Maybe you hear a new word starting from A, you just add it to that Excel. Make sure not to add the meaning of the word, just add the word alone. The benefit of not adding the word's meaning is that when you will try to recollect the meanings while looking at the Excel sheet, it would reinforce the remembrance of the meaning of that word and the utility of that word. If you already have the word meanings in front of you, it would definitely prevent that from happening as effectively. So all you need to do is keep adding the words as you move through your SAT journey. It could be from the passages that you come across. It could be from the options of any words in context type of question. It could be from any of your general curriculum, maybe a newspaper, maybe a magazine, a novel that you might want to read, a newspaper article that you might come across, an online article that you might come across. So wherever you are reading, if there is a new word, you come and add it here. And you review this list at least once every day, if not twice. Twice would definitely be better, but if not twice, at least once every day. You read the word, you try to recollect the meaning, And that is how you'll make sure that down the lane, some of the words are starting to become natural for you. Same is what you need to do for the roots, prefixes, and suffixes. Whenever you're coming across new words or even the old words, just type on Google and check what are the roots, prefixes, and suffixes involved in that word. By the way, not every word can be divided into these parts, but the ones that can be broken down, feel free to go and check for them. And you can come back and add those words to these respective columns. When you'll review this Excel sheet, it will help you understand the different roots and prefixes and suffixes and their meanings. And that would allow you to anticipate or have an idea of the meaning of the words that you haven't even ever looked at. Just one more step before this. Whenever you're coming across the new words, try to predict the meaning based on the current knowledge that you have. For example, you understood a couple of new words in today's session. Some roots were also given to you. Based on that, try to predict the meanings if you can. But make sure that you are double checking those meanings before giving yourself the authenticity that yes, this is the right meaning. This way, not only will you be able to learn the new words, but also you'll be able to actively practice how to guess the meaning of the words. But this is something that has to be a continuous exercise. I hope this helps all of you. Thank you for today.